Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing my February reading wrap-up. I was able to read 26 books in the month of February, which is almost a book a day. Again, always shocked at how many books I managed to read, but I just love doing it so much that I do it very well. One of the biggest accomplishments I did this month was read 8 of my 24 books to read in 2024. I honestly couldn't believe how many of these I finished, but I was able to read What Moves the Dead, A Tempest of Tea, This Could Be Us, A Vicious Game, Infinity Alchemist, The Butcher of the Forest, Into the Sunken City, and Bride. But moving on to my tracker, because I was able to read 26 books, that now brings me to a total of 50 books for the year. So I decided to use pink for the month of February and just filling in the corresponding boxes. But before we move on to the next spread, I just want to give a huge shout out to those of you who have subscribed to my channel. I did pass the 1,000 mark over this past month, and I know in the scheme of things and the scale of YouTube that's a small amount, but to me it means a lot. So thank you to all of you who have supported my channel and supported my content. I love having you here, and to all you new people who have joined, thank you for being here. But moving on to my 2024 TBRs, starting with my physical TBR, I was able to read The Genesis of Misery by Neon Yang and Sink by Joseph Earl Thomas. I gave both of these 3 stars. And then I was only able to read one of my digital TBR books, and that was Free Me by Ashley Rostak, and that was the final book in the WITSEC program. But because I had so many ARCs in February, I had a lot of those that I got to check off the list this month, and that included Relit and A Fate Inked in Blood, Fathom Folk, The Imposition of Unnecessary Obstacles, my favorite book of the month, An Education in Malice. And yeah, that was all for the month of February, and I have a couple more lined up for March as well. Moving on to my ABC challenge, I can add 4 books to this month, and that includes the B book, which was Bride by Ali Hazelwood, my I book, which was Into the Sunken City by Dinesh Thiru, my R book, which was Riot Baby by Tochi Onyabuchi, and then my T book, which was This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. So overall, it is starting to fill out rather nicely. Then we have my monthly book trackers, which is my favorite books of the month, and for February, as I mentioned before, was An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. I adore S.T. Gibson, and so far all the books I've read by her are 5 stars. And then our February theme for book club was a music theme, so we selected Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And similar to last month, a lot of new releases came out in February. The 13th and the 27th were particularly heavy in terms of new releases, but again, so many of my most anticipated reads came out in February, and I was able to acquire quite a few of them. As you can see, every book that I now own is highlighted, and most of them I was able to read in the month of February. But hopefully I can give my bank account a little bit of a break in March and April, as I don't think there are as many releases coming out as the previous 2 months. And finally, we have arrived at the moment you've all been waiting for, my February reading wrap-up. Similar to what I did in January, if you saw that video, is I am making a little trapdoor once again to showcase not only the title or the monthly title, but the stats that I will put underneath, since the book covers of all the books that I read this month take up the majority of the space. And to be honest, I am still giddy over it and how well it turns out, even though there's quite a bit of white space where the fold happens. I might try and figure that out after this, but anyways, here is my cover page and all of the books that I read in the month of February. Again, I was able to read 26 books, and a lot of them were books that I had on TBRs and challenges, so I made quite a big dent in my 24 to read in 2024 challenge this month. And then I had quite a few ARCs as well, which I will talk about when I go over my demographics, but as you can see, these are all of the books that I read this month, and I do get the question in my comments on almost every video on how I do the covers of my books. And so what I do is I basically go to Goodreads and I just take the cover of whatever edition that I read and I just save it to my desktop, and then I do have a Canva subscription, and so I just go in and I have a template that I made and I just plop all of the covers into that template, and then I print them out here at home on sticker paper that I bought for like $6 on Amazon, I think. It is linked below in the description. But yeah, so I just print those out, cut them out, and I do have it in my settings so that they're always the same size, but that really depends on the size of your notebook. This is a B5 notebook, so I can fit quite a bit of covers on here, as you can see. But yeah, overall, this was a really good reading month. I didn't have the highest rated books, but I did read some really good books, which I'll discuss. I think I am going to be going over at least 10 books that I read, including the books that I read for my 24 to read in 2024 challenge. But for my stats, as you can see here, which are under my little hidden trapdoor, I have my genre, of course, 13 fantasy books, 7 LGBTQIA books, 6 young adult books, 6 sci-fi books, 6 romance books, and 5 mystery books. And then for the demographics, 10 were by Caucasian authors, 7 were by LGBTQIA authors, 5 were by API authors, excuse me. And then 5 were by Black authors, 2 were by Latinx or Hispanic authors, and then I did read 1 book by an Indigenous author. And then for my rating, I had 1 5-star book, I had 14 4-star books, I had 9 3-star books, and 2 2-star books. And then in the formats, 58% were in audiobook format, 38% were in digital format, and 4% were in print format. And then this is something new that I thought I'd do, but I've started to track this year, and I am tracking basically where the books come from. And so 10 of the books I read this month were ARCs, so advanced reader copies that I got from the publishers. And then 10 of the books I read I got from my local library that I use the Libby app to read. And then 7 of the books I own, and 1 of the books that I read was from Kindle Unlimited. And then another new tracker, or another new stat I'm tracking, is the page number. And 54% of the books that I read were between the 300 and 499 page count, and then 46% of the books I read were under 300 pages. But yeah, those are my stats for my February reads. Now it is time for the review portion of my February wrap-up, starting with 2 books that I had on my TBR for Black History Month. And the first book is by one of my favorite authors, Nnedi Okorafor, and that is Remote Control. This was a really awesome short sci-fi novella. Basically, our main character is the adopted daughter of the Angel of Death, and it guards her like it's one of her own. The day Fatima forgot her name, Death paid a visit. Her touch is death, and with a glance, a town can fall. And she walks alone, except for her fox companion, searching for the object that came from the sky and gave itself to her when the meteors fell and when she was yet unchanged, searching for answers. Nnedi never disappoints, and this engrossing sci-fi novella had all of her signature storytelling that I've come to love. A fierce and headstrong protagonist, memorable and endearing side characters, and a highly engaging story that progresses nicely from beginning to end. I did give it 4 stars. And then the next one is Riot Baby. by Tochi Oniyabuchi. I do apologize if I did not pronounce that correctly, but this book is another novella, and it is rooted in the hope that that can live in anger. Riot Baby is as much an intimate family story as a global dystopian narrative. It burns fearlessly toward revolution and has quietly devastating things to say about love, fury, and the Black American experience. This book, while brief, still manages to encompass so many experiences and feelings with our two main characters, evoking a lot of emotions for the reader, exploring themes of racism and oppression in America with a fantastical twist, particularly within the criminal justice system, both in regards to policing and incarceration. I gave this book 4 stars. Next up are 2 arcs that I read this month, and the first one being The Imposition of Unnecessary Obstacles by Malka Older. This is the second book in the Mosa and Pletty series, and basically, I found myself immersed once again in the thrilling world of sci-fi sleuthing and gender-swapped queer retellings. This latest adventure takes our dynamic duo into a new case involving multiple missing persons, weaving in Older's signature style, wit, and a journey across the cosmos. One of the strengths of this installment lies in its ability to build upon the groundwork laid in the first book. The mystery in The Imposition of Unnecessary Obstacles is even more engrossing, leading the reader through a web of intrigue and surprises. The narrative skillfully incorporates the series' signature style, maintaining the balance between suspenseful investigation and moments of humor and charm. This is a really great short sci-fi series set on Jupiter, and it's kind of a queer gender-swapped Sherlock Holmes, so if you're looking to delve into the sci-fi genre, I highly recommend this series. But moving on to my favorite book of the month, which was An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. On her first day of class, Laura is thrust into an intense academic rivalry with the beautiful and enigmatic Kamilah. Together, they are drawn into the confidence of their demanding poetry professor, De La Fontaine, who holds her own dark obsession with Kamilah. But as the rivalry blossoms into something far more delicious, Laura must confront her own strange hungers. Tangled in a sinister game of politics, bloodthirsty professors, and dark magic, Laura and Kamilah must decide how much they are willing to sacrifice in their ruthless pursuit of knowledge. Having previously devoured a dowry of blood, I find myself utterly captivated by Gibson's distinct voice and storytelling style. The seamless blend of horror and romance is a prime example to the author's versatility, and I eagerly anticipate each new work that emerges from her. I gave this 5 stars. And next up, we have all of the books that I read as part of my 24 books to read in 2024. Some of them I definitely liked more than others, but I wanted to include all of them since they are a part of my biggest reading challenge that I have for the year. Starting off with Into the Sunken City by Dinesh Thiru. This is a debut, and it takes place in the slowly sinking city of Coconino. The days are long, the money is tight, and the rain never stops. For Jin, this life is nothing new. Ever since her father died in a diving accident, she's barely made ends meet for her and her younger sister. Enter Billy, a drifter who offers Jin the score of a lifetime, a massive stash of gold hidden in the sunken ruins of Las Vegas. Assembling a ragtag crew, a high-stakes heist ensues that's beyond even Jin's wildest fears. Crumbling ruins, sea beasts, corsairs, and a mysterious figure lie in wait. This was an insanely intriguing premise with very vivid imagery that the author was able to conjure. I really enjoyed just about everything about this book, but our FMC, or our female main character, was just a little bit too doom and gloom for me to fully connect with her, and after a while it did become very annoying, but I still really enjoyed the premise and the world that the author created. I gave it 4 stars. And then we have The Butcher of the Forest by Premi Muhammad. This is a short, dark fantasy novella, and it takes place basically in a very haunted forest where a world-weary woman races against the clock to rescue the children of a wrathful tyrant from a dangerous otherworldly forest. At the northern edge of a land ruled by a monstrous foreign tyrant lies the wild forest known as the Elmever. The villagers know better than to let their children go near. Once someone goes in, they never come back out. I found myself entranced by the chilling tale of a woman compelled to navigate a dark and magical forest to rescue the children of the man responsible for the devastation of her village and life during a brutal war. This novella proved to be adept at weaving vivid imagery and darker than expected themes into a haunting narrative that left a lasting impression. I gave it 4 stars. Next, we have A Vicious Game by Melissa Blair, which is the 3rd installment in the Halfling saga. This is a fantasy series that I really am obsessed with. I love it so much, so I was very excited to read the next installment in this series. Basically, a new king is on the throne and the rebellion lies in ruins. Kira spends her days drinking and her nights avoiding the strange dreams that have haunted her since she returned from the capital, but her family in Maryland won't let her go without a fight. With new intelligence about the magical seals left behind by Kira's ancient kin, she rallies to face her demons and unleash the formidable powers she inherited from her people. I, again, love this series. I love the characters, I love the world, and I even like the villain because let me tell you, he was villaining in this one. While I'm concerned about Kira becoming the all-too-powerful FMC we see in fantasy, which tends to lower the stakes, I think Melissa will manage to exceed my expectations with this series, especially after that jaw-dropping reveal at the end of this book. I was very close to giving it 5 stars, but again, it's like the female main character becoming all too powerful trope that I'm not a big fan of, so I pretty much might as well give this a 4.5 star book, but for here I rounded down to 4 stars. And then next we have What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher. This is a follow-up to What Moves the Dead. Retired soldier Alex Easton returns in a horrifying new adventure. After their terrifying ordeal at the Usher Manor, Alex Easton feels as if they just survived another war. All they crave is rest, routine, and sunshine, but instead, as a favor to Agnes and Miss Potter, they find themselves heading to their family hunting lodge, deep in the cold, damp forests of their home country, Galicia. What Moves the Dead was enjoyable due to its familiar story and overtly creepy vibes, but sadly I didn't get the same feeling for the sequel. While Kingfisher's usual sarcasm and macabre setting is prevalent, I didn't quite enjoy this as much as I was hoping to, so I gave this one 3 stars. Next up is another very highly anticipated read that I had for this year, Bride by Ali Hazelwood. A dangerous alliance between a vampire bride and an alpha werewolf becomes a love deep enough to sink your teeth into in this new paranormal romance. I will be the first to admit that my first experience with Ali Hazelwood was not a good one, but thankfully I gave her a second chance last year with Check and Mate, a book I really enjoyed, and then again here with Bride. I really liked this paranormal romance that she has created. Yes, the world building and fantasy elements were minimal, but this being a romance and all, I found myself eating it up. I'm really excited to read more in this series. I hope Ali continues it after the ending of this book, but we shall see. I gave it 4 stars. And next up is Case and Calendar's newest book, their first dive into fantasy, I believe, and that is Infinity Alchemist. When Ash Woods is rejected by the Lancaster Mages College, he takes a job at the school's groundskeeper instead, forced to learn alchemy in secret. When he's discovered, Ash is sure he's about to be arrested, but instead of calling the Reds, the enigmatic Ramsay Thorne surprises Ash by making him an offer. Ramsay will keep Ash's secret and even train him if he helps her find the legendary Book of Source. Calendar's commitment to diverse representation is one of their strengths, and the vibrant world they've created holds the promise of a dynamic fantasy landscape. The magic system, with its intriguing complexities, adds layers to the narrative, creating a captivating backdrop for the unfolding story. Unfortunately, I think I would have enjoyed this more if the story revolved around Ramsay, who I found to be a far more compelling character rather than Ash. So I gave this 3 stars. And for my final two books this month, we have This Could Be Us by Raven Kennedy. Having been captivated by the first installment of Kennedy Ryan's Skyland romance series, I eagerly delved into This Could Be Us, a story centered around Soledad's journey of self-discovery and self-love after a tumultuous divorce. While Ryan's storytelling prowess shines through, my overall experience was marred by the unrealistic perfection bestowed upon every character in the book. Soledad emerged from the pages as a paragon of flawlessness. Her seemingly flawless nature extended to every facet of her being, leaving little room for depth or complexity, becoming a source of monotony rather than inspiration. And the same unrealistic perfection extended to the characters around Soledad as well, even her scumbag ex-husband, who was perfectly awful in every way. So basically, it just made for kind of a boring story with how perfect this character was. Even characters that we meet in the first book were just perfection personified of themselves, whether they were friends, family, or colleagues, or just anything. And so yeah, again, it just made for a bit of a boring read, but again, Kennedy Ryan's writing is no doubt one of the best in contemporary romance in my opinion, and even though it's not my favorite genre, I still commend Kennedy for how brilliant her writing is, and she does have some pretty awesome characters. So even though I didn't like this book, I can guarantee that her biggest fans will probably eat this up just like they do all of her other stuff. But for me, I'm still a bigger fan of the first book in this series, so we'll see how the third book in the series turns out. But this one for me was a miss. I gave it 3 stars. And lastly, we have literally the last book I read in February. I finished it at like 11 o'clock at night before the clock struck midnight on March 1st, but that was A Tempest of Tea by Hafsah Faizal. I was really excited for this book because I had heard so many good things about it, and it really did not disappoint. I thought this was a fantastic start to her new series, which follows Arthi Casimir in a who is a criminal mastermind and collector of secrets. Her prestigious tea room transforms into an illegal bloodhouse by dark, catering to the vampires feared by society. But when her establishment is threatened, Arthi is forced to strike an unlikely deal with an alluring adversary to save it, hatching a plan to infiltrate the dark and glittering vampire society known as the Ethereum with some of the city's most skilled outcasts. A perfect blend of Six of Crows and the Gilded Wolves, Faizal crafts a lush world of vampires and the criminal underground of this London-inspired world where colonialism is rampant and Arthi is determined more than ever to keep her and her remaining family safe and the life they've worked hard to build intact. If only it were so easy. I gave this book 4 stars. And now for my full flip through of my February reading wrap up. But thank you again to all my new subscribers. Again, this has been such an exciting start to the year with how much love my videos have been getting. I'm glad you all are enjoying it. I've really enjoyed setting up this reading journal this year. I love every time I get to come and add new stuff to it, and I hope you continue to like it as well. But for those of you who are new, welcome, and if you like what you see and want to see more, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and if you wouldn't mind just showing me some love, be sure to hit that like as well. If you are looking for some of the books that I am planning on reading, be sure to follow me on Goodreads, and if you want to know about any of the materials that I used, those are linked below in the description. But until next time everyone, happy reading!